My name is Haley, and this is my story. I grew up a believer just because that is what we believed in my home. My mother always taught us to pray. We said our bedtime prayers, but we didn't have a close relationship with God. I was a believer, but it wasn't until God really started to work in my personal life as an adult that I really was able to really see the power that God had in my life. Me and my husband, we decided to have a baby after we were married for about 2.5, 3 years. We were excited to try to have a baby. We were ready, and we got pregnant within about 4 months. That pregnancy was very easy. I had a very healthy, easy pregnancy, but my water broke, and my first son, Barrett, he was born only about a month early. When he was born, I remember him being born and he was not crying. You know, it was my first baby. I wasn't really concerned, but in the movies, you always see the baby's crying. And I did notice that the nurses gathered around him pretty quickly, and they rushed him off to the NICU fairly quickly. They said that his lungs were not fully developed. I will never forget the day they ran into the waiting room and they came to get me because they told us, you know, a decision has to be made. He's gonna have to have some procedures done because his lungs were starting to collapse. They explained some of our options to us, and we chose less invasive first. And these procedures ended up not working on Barrett. And I remember the doctor telling us, if this chest tube doesn't work, then we're out of options. I think my husband tried to put on, a front for me to be the strong one. So I know that he was praying on his own, but I fell to the floor there and just prayed, God, please heal my baby, heal his lungs, just give him the strength that he needs. And I remember at the end of the day, after Barrett received his chest tube, the doctor telling us, we've tried some different procedures before we did the chest tube, and his little body is tired. His heart rate was plummeting, and then it would skyrocket, and then it would plummet, and it would skyrocket. And we continued to pray, and we asked all of our family and friends to pray with us, because I have always, and my mom has always said, there's power in prayer. And when two or more get together and pray, there's power in that. Within 9 hours, the doctor came to us, and he was just astonished at the progress Barrett was making. He said that he never sees babies that had to go through those procedures and receive chest tubes like he did. He doesn't see them make progress that quickly. And I remember telling him, well, we have a lot of prayer warriors. And he said, okay, well, let's see what happens in the next 8 hours. So 8 hours later, he came to us and he said, he's just making amazing progress, but, expect to be here for at least 2 more weeks. All 6 hours went by, and he came to us again, and he said, y'all's prayers must be being heard. I've just never seen this before. Barrett was great, breathing on his own. He was doing great. Now, he did have to have a few more procedures in the coming months, but he was making progress and he was doing great. Fast forward to his first birthday, the day of his first birthday, the day that he turned 1, he developed a very, very high fever. It was 104.6, and this was on a Sunday. So we took him into urgent care, and the doctor that was in the urgent care told us, do not be concentrated on the height of the fever. His body was fighting something, but he should be okay. So by the time we got back home, it was about a 30-minute drive. We got home and his fever had skyrocketed even higher with medicine. He was at 106.7. So we turned right back around and went right back to the hospital this time, to the Cook's emergency room, and immediately took us back, and all these alarms started going off, and they told us that he was going sepsis. His body was shutting down. He was trying to fight some type of infection. They weren't sure what. They needed to do spinal taps immediately and run all these tests. And, you know, I remember at that time too, praying to God. Heal my baby, just heal my baby. You know, God, he's in your hands. And we had chosen not to vaccinate Barrett at birth. So he was not vaccinated. So at that time, when he was 1, I remember them making us feel like it was our fault that he was sick. It was our fault that he was sick. The next 24 hours of me breaking down one night and just praying over that baby, we were in the hospital for about a week and a half until they had cultures come back. They figured out what it was, put him on antibiotics, and we were gone within 2 days. Once Barrett turned, he was almost 3, we decided to start trying again for another baby. So we did, we started trying, and I got pregnant fairly quickly. And again, all this time, God worked miracles on my first baby, answered prayers. But again, I was not going to church. I wasn't praying to God on a daily basis. It was more so when I needed something from God. So here we are, I got pregnant, and we decided not to find out the gender. And I remember all of a sudden one day, I got these huge veins in the backs of my right leg. Daily, they got worse and worse and worse. And my doctor sent me to the vascular team in Dallas, and they sat me down, and he was just astonished that I had not had varicose veins, is what they called them, you know, before pregnancy, and I had not. I'd always been very healthy. At that point, I was very active. I never had varicose veins. This was a sudden onset of pregnancy. He did some Dopplers and some testing on my legs, and there was some clotting that was happening. He explained to me that if the blood clots traveled from my lower extremities towards my heart or anywhere else in my body, he said, you know, there's not a lot that we can do while you're pregnant. He said, so you are looking at life loss or limb loss. If clots started to travel, they could take my right leg. Here I am. I want to be active in my children's lives. I want to be able to run and play with them. And that was my first thought. Fear, it consumed me. I remember when the time came, we had a huge ice storm, the biggest ice storm 2021, and that little baby decided it was time. He was actually born on Valentine's Day. I had both of my legs. I had my health. I had a healthy baby. We did not know if it was a boy or a girl. I remember telling my husband, and he looked at me and he said, "It's crying." And I remember looking at him saying, "Well, what is it?" And it was another boy. So here we are, 2 boys, and we made it. After our second son was a year old, we went back and saw our vascular team. My legs got a little bit better. They weren't healed completely. I still struggled with pain, and especially in the heat. Jumping backwards a little bit, I always wanted 3 kids. I always told my husband from the get-go, before baby number 1, I want 3 babies. I want 3. So I remember being in that appointment with our vascular team, and he looked at me and said, "You can't have a 3rd baby." He goes, "I mean, you could, but I strongly advise against that. If you have a 3rd baby, your body is going to reject that baby. So we started going to church every Sunday, and slowly Sundays and Wednesdays to Bible study, and I fell in love. I had never felt a feeling in my heart the way that I did when I was at that church. That was in December, and my husband and I actually went on a vacation together, just him and I. I told him, I said, what do you think about having a third baby? And he sat me down and he said, I do not think that that is a good idea. What if something happened to you? I don't like the thought of that. It scares me. And when he explained it to me like that, it really made me think of it differently. So this is December, January, February, March, and April comes around. I was on birth control. We were not trying for a third baby. We had decided a few months before this, we were done having kids, and I found out that I was pregnant. My reaction to this was not what one would think. When I took the test that night, I remember being so scared. All of the what ifs came back. What if my body cannot handle this? I cannot do this. As much as I wanted a third baby, it's here, I can't. It was so painful last time. And my husband, on the other hand, was so excited. I will never forget this, because at this point we had been married for 7 years. And in that moment, he took my hand and he lifted my chin up and he wiped away my tears and he said, God does not make mistakes. And for the first time in our marriage, we got down on our knees in our bedroom floor and we prayed out loud together. I felt like this was going to be a test of my faith. I was on a new walk, so I'm going to embrace it and I'm going to get through this, but I'm going to have God's help. My legs turned black and purple again very early on. The pain started very early on, quicker than what we thought it would. My legs were hot with fever. My blood pressure skyrocketed because of the pain, and very quickly I got put on bed rest. So I was, battling through the pain every day and the high blood pressure every day. At 32 weeks, one night after church, I started having very hard, heavy contractions. That next morning, I went in straight to my doctor and she checked me. My cervix was 75% thinned, and she did a test on me to check me for preterm labor. And I remember going back to my church family with this news, and I was trying so hard to be brave and to put on a face, but I broke down and I cried. And our pastor, I remember him praying over me, thicken, 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 thicken. And I remember during prayer, he just kept saying those words, thicken, 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 thicken. So 2 weeks went by, we did not have a baby. And my doctor was very shocked. She told us that there was less than a 5% chance of that happening, that if you test positive on the preterm labor test and that your cervix is already 75% thinned, that there was less than a 5% chance of that happening. Well, it happened. God kept that baby where he needed him, and we're 2 weeks down the road. So she said, okay, 34 is good. That's much better than 32. So we're at a really good spot. There's less than a 2% chance now that you will make it to 37 weeks, but 37 weeks is considered full term. You will probably not make it there because now you're starting to dilate. My doctor was amazed that my cervix had not thinned anymore, especially with now that I'm starting to dilate. And I told her, I said, well, I know why it's not. My church family prayed for my cervix to thicken. They prayed for it to thicken. They prayed. And then we had our sweet third baby boy. Healthy, he was crying. He weighed the exact same weight at 39 weeks that our first son did when he was born early, so he was smaller. But I never felt more proud of myself in that moment that I did it. I did it. And really, I didn't do it. God did it. I do feel like that pregnancy was a test of my faith. I do feel like I was being tested. You know, and Scripture tells us that consider it pure joy when you face trials of many kinds, because it's a test of your faith. My children watched me do this during my pregnancy, and they started talking to God and praying to God for me. God, please heal my mommy's legs. Please take my mommy's pain away. That's one of the greatest gifts. My legs now are better than they have ever been. Even after that second pregnancy, they're better now, and they continue to get better every day. God really showed me a different side of my walk, and I'm just forever grateful for that.